Greetings, fellow Pips and Pippins, and welcome to the GrogPod Roguelike podcast, wherein each episode we tie an onion to our belt and talk about a rogue-inspired game, slap some numerical ranking number on it, and see how it ranks up in the end of season doomed prophecy roguelike tournament of reviews that we do at the end of the year. I am your desiccated, joint achy elder of the podcast village, Scott Berger. And with me are my townsfolk co-hosts.
It's a lie, I'm not a townsfolk. I'm Heat Death of the Universe, also your village, Colin.
And me, Andrew Ma Toaster Harshman.
God damn it. This is Will, who is supposed to be a toaster, but now I guess I'm the essence of overpopulation.
Ooh, that's a good one. This week we are exchanging 5Bs for a quarter for the game dotAge.
No one's going to know these references.
I don't know this reference either.
I know we just watched these Simpsons references, so it's top of mind for me, but there's no audience member who's going to know what the hell you're talking about.
Well, see, they're targeted at similarly old people because we are all extremely old.
I could not. It's not old, though. It's like, and also a Simpsons junkie. Not just that, you have to be like on the inner of the inner circles, I think.
I think most people who listen to the show are crippling Simpsons addicts.
I didn't get the reference because I forgot to watch the video that you posted in our Discord.
That'll be your homework assignment for the week.
Oh, you shouldn't have said that.
This week we are talking, once again, we're talking dotAge, released October 4th, 2023. You can find it so far just on Steam. I believe it might be coming to consoles at some point, question mark. I have as a data point here. This was developed and published by Michele Pirovano from Lombardy, Italy. And it rolls in on our data set at the number 383 most popular roguelike game with 1,892 total reviews. And your average player of dotAge has about 31 hours of playtime in it. Colin, you have just gained the positive trait describer, which means you have to summarize what one does in dotAge in one sentence.
It is a village simulator game where your village is guided by a crotchety elder man with prophecies of doom from 4 apocalyptic domains sent to destroy your village.
Fair enough.
And you have a bunch of little pips. They call them pips rather than meeples or population or whatever, or pawns. Pips.
I do kind of like the nomenclature for pip and specifically pippins for the little baby pips in this game.
And overpopulation's pretty good.
Yeah, that is true. But yeah, this is our second I guess not a very common subgenre for this subgenre of city builder rogue games, which isn't something you would tend to think of, but is actually seems like it's starting to catch on as a concept. Our last roguey city builder game, I think, is currently our lowest rated game of this season, which was Against the Storm. And you know what? I think I'm still an apologist for Against the Storm. I think I still have fond memories of that game. I think in the aggregate it did not shape out so well, but this game has a lot of similar ideas, but different, I would say, execution. I think notably with the art style. I think that I went back to our Against the Storm episode and I was thinking to myself, all right, what did we hate? Okay, what did everyone else dislike about that game? And I think one of the principal complaints was like the art style for Against the Storm. It felt like very Warcrafty, whereas dotAge, I think, is like right up in your face with like this very cute, charming, almost Super Nintendo like graphical style.
Charmingly pixelated.
Yes.
Which I was struck by the fact that like it's infinitely like less of a workload to create the graphics for this game, but it's like as effective, if not better. It's certainly for Will, it's more appealing.
Yeah, no, I actually forgot what that game was. I did like do a quick Googling because I mixed that up with there was another one where there was like a turn-based tactics, some city building. I don't remember exactly what that one was, but yeah, Against the Storm. Yeah, that was a shit game. I hated that.
it's okay to like or not like a game. All devs go to heaven, and
God, your average score is like a 7.5, and you just like if you look at the histogram of your scores, they're sevens or eights, all of them across the board.
I just have so much love to
Pointing to the
give is the thing.
histogram.
And I think there's a lot of love to give out for this game as well. I think we might have some criticisms of this game as well,
Nah, it's
but
pretty
yeah.
much perfect.
I have on my Google Doc note here of previous city builder games that we played. I guess, Will, you might be thinking of The Last Spell, which was kind of like
That's
that
correct.
The
turn-based.
last bill was good. It
That game
wasn't
was
like
good. I
Ooh,
almost
so
think
really
that
like it
game
was
sweet.
good.
I almost think that game suffered of like too much of a good thing. And I feel like that might be my similar criticism here,
Yeah, it is a
where
similar problem. It's very time consuming.
yes. And then I also have a note on here that RimWorld doesn't count. And yeah, what else?
Uh, the
Doesn't
other
it?
one I would put in the category is Stacklands. That feels like a similar vibe to me. It's
Yeah,
not
I can see
exactly the
that.
same, but it's I have a lot of the criticisms I have for Stacklands I'm going to have for this game as well.
Well, yeah, I mean it's interesting that it's been a little while since we've come to this idea of the city builder where uh it's a concept that like it feels very time investment heavy, and it's kind of like an idea that goes antithetical to like quick run-based natures of games. Although I was just playing a different one earlier today that was taking like 90 minutes per run. I'm thinking, is this really that much faster or slower? But yeah, I think like city builder games in general feel like a time investment, and it's an interesting thing to try to spin that on its head for, well, we're gonna have this be something run based, but I guess at a certain, and this was something that one of the listeners wrote in on our summer music special episode of like how long do you like these games? And I think we kind of all landed on the somewhere between like an hour to like 90 minutes feels about right for a run of these kinds
And
of games.
up to 3 hours is still like pretty good.
Sure, yeah. I think with the proviso, if like you could like pause it and come back to it easily.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think that like some stuff that is weird with other roguey colony sim city builder games, I think like really kind of stems around the tech tree. And this is one of the things that Dwarf Fortress and RimWorld are really kind of skimming the line here of like Dwarf Fortress and RimWorld both have static tech trees. Like you open up a world in either of those games and you could like almost like blindly place down stuff to some degree. Um, Whereas with Against the Storm, and particularly with this game, dotAge, you don't have that. How would we describe how the tech tree in this game works?
I mean, the tech tree works in almost the same way, regardless of what sort of like random elements are pulled in. And what I mean by that is, for instance, in the beginning, you need to have some sort of knowledge generating resource. And you could have, I think, a library or like I don't remember the specific names, but there's there's a bunch of different like beginner sort of tech things. And the differences are like, oh yeah, this one has to be adjacent to the city center, and this one over here is not adjacent to the city center. And so it's like, what's the difference here? It's like, okay, it still generates approximately the exact same amount of knowledge, but just under different conditions about like where it's positioned. And so it's like this facade of differentiation. And that's true for, I think, all the different like, in this slot for like, oh, you're growing things. Okay, we're gonna pick something. Maybe it's tomatoes. Oh, okay, great. Well, in this case, carrots. It's just like, and they're slightly different. You have to be close to a well in this case. Oh, it has to be close to another crop in this case. It's just the tech tree is like I said, a shallow facade of trying to build something that looks like a diverse and interesting, like when I think about diverse and interesting, I think about StarCraft, for instance, and like, oh yeah, like the different races are very different in what your build order is and how the whole species operates. But here it's just like, oh, you get a slightly different building.
Well, yeah,
So
because you're just playing the medieval Warcraft humans for every run.
yeah, essentially, and it, so I found the tech tree solution to building in like a replayability through variation to be very shallow, which I don't know. It's all going to build towards the
Mhm.
ultimate opinion here, which is that this game is really fun until you get your first win, and then just call it good. Then
Mm.
just be that's it. There's no replayability at all.
So as an extremely old person in my mid 30s, my memory is fading. You need memories to unlock some of the stuff in this tech tree. And it took me an embarrassingly long amount of time to like try to figure out how this memory system worked.
Were
Oh,
you just saving up like memory points or whatever the heck the currency is?
Well, so I downloaded the demo to this game a long time ago, and I was like, hey, this is kind of fun. Like I could totally see us playing this at some point. And then like I was excited when you picked it because I was like, okay, great. Well, I'll be able to come back to this. I booted up my save from I think I was like 5 hours in on the demo. I had no idea what was happening. I had no idea like what to do for anything. And I eventually failed that colony, and I was like, okay, that's fine. I'll start over from the beginning. But I was like, well, last time I was able to like plop a thing down from the tech tree, but now there's like this little like puzzle piece there. And like, what's the deal with that? Like I thought I was able to do something. Um and yeah, I think that like the aspect of how you unlock stuff in the tech tree is interesting, but you're shaking your head.
Yeah,
Well,
it's not interesting.
I think it's I think it's interesting for the aspect of trying something different. And so the idea is that like your elder has is trying to unlock their memories of how do you dig a well,
Yeah, they had a stroke basically, and they just forgot a bunch of stuff. And now they're like, your kid, like, hey, you play the piano, and you know how to farm carrots, right? And it's basically that kind of thing.
carrots.
Mhm. uh and crucially, you have to build up these memory points by surviving, either passing or failing these events that happen. And you get more points if you pass, but you still get some points if you fail, which is fine. It helps keep the treadmill rolling. But as you accrue these points, this is your meta progression tree of aha, I've unlocked 10 memory points. Click, hooray, I've unlocked all these little things that add in to the tech tree, and new events will pop up, and now cats can come to the village and as VIPs, and
It should
you're
do it automatically. You
mm,
shouldn't have to click you shouldn't have to click a button. The vast majority of them is one after another.
It's
And you're like, oh, gonna click the button. What's it gonna be? Oh, it's something that's mediocre to bad for my village. Cool. I'm glad I clicked that button. Like
Right? Yeah.
I really don't like the memory tech tree. It
hmm.
is unsatisfying in the extreme. You click a button, it's bad, and or it's things that you don't use in your run, so I don't care.
yeah,
Right. It felt like at certain points, if you're barely, at least in my case, your village is barely hanging in, and then it's like, oh, well, I've got some memory points, let's spend them, and it's like, congratulations. And the concept of sin has been introduced into your village. It's like, no, what? It's
Right.
like
Or you unlocked algae farms. We're not going to let you do that during this run, but like at some point in the future, 13 hours from now, when you're doing your second run, you can have an algae farm.
indeed. Now, I'd like to point out that when you unlock these new things, like, oh, now I can't think of a concrete example. Like now you're some of the better, more positive things that you can unlock is like now your pips will have like interpersonal relationships. Like, oh, now there's friendship. The concept of friendship has arrived. The little pip character looks remarkably like our Scott Burger here. At least in my opinion. Maybe not other people.
If
Yeah,
I
I'm
was like
not getting
six
much
pixels
buy-in here.
tall.
Yeah. Well, it's an abstraction, of course. But yeah, so it's kind of I thought it was neat that like, oh, cool, there's like more depth and like character and stuff that can happen. But I agree. The way in which you unlock them seems totally unnecessary. And I'd be curious, both with this and with the quote unquote randomized tech tree, at what point during the development were those things introduced? Because it does feel kind of like a tacked on, I don't know, way to make it seem like, as you said, Will, this sort of shallow facade of randomization?
That's a good question because it feels like in at least in like the memory meta progression tech tree thing, there's like at most like one branching path of like, do you want to unlock this thing or this thing? And I never really like felt like that was like like a cripplingly hard decision. I was
Well,
just
you
like,
can
yeah, I
unlock
guess I'll
the
just
other
pick
one
this
the
one.
next time too.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Um,
even a choice. It was just like, oh, you now have to unlock two of them.
mhm. So yeah, I guess I can see what you're saying with the auto unlock thing. I would have to imagine that the memory system came after the tech tree because it seems like the idea of the randomized tech tree with like limited options. I will maybe bat for it a little bit to say that like limiting your option scope for like your first run is probably a wise idea because there's like a crazy amount of stuff in this game, and I think almost overwhelmingly so. Uh, it
Yeah,
feels like
which is why I say it should unlock. Like I
yeah.
agree with you on that. Like you shouldn't get blasted in your first minute.
hmm but yeah, like if it was an auto unlock thing of like, oh, like you've accumulated because I think Andrew shared a screenshot in the Discord of like, what's going wrong with my city here? And you had like 150 memory points banked up accidentally.
Indeed. Yeah, that might have been me. That sounds like something I would do because yeah, on average, like they're not that impactful. Like so, like I don't know. I guess it was I was more interested in the day-to-day operations of my
Hmm.
town.
I mean, unless you have that resource on your map where you're
Mhm.
like suddenly you're able, like, you have cows or you have birds, for instance, and like, oh, suddenly you need to have the thing that like gets you the bird hunter house or whatever the fuck it was called. It's just like, oh, okay, well, and how does that work? Oh, it's exactly the same as the thing that harvests chickens, except it's a bird. It's just a generic bird, and it's just like, wow, yeah, that's I mean, I guess I'm just making the same point where it's birds, it's pigs, it's cows.
Uh,
Oh, cows and milk. Oh, milk helps you get cheese. Oh, unfortunately, on this run, you didn't have this specific resource on your map. So the fuck are you unlocking this for? I don't know.
now I
It all.
know I know the answer to this for Will is certainly no, because Will doesn't really play a whole lot of complicated European tabletop board games. But I wonder if Andrew and or Colin have played Agricola before.
Yes.
Oh, I played. Yeah, I probably played like 20 or 30 hours in that game.
Really?
No,
uh,
of course not.
Ah, well played. Um, the concept of lying has been introduced to your village. No, yeah, just go in there. I've heard of it. I've definitely I've seen it in like every game store I've ever walked into.
It's a great
Presumably that
game.
is a worker placement game of some sort.
Yeah, it's a worker placement. It's pretty brutal. Like, it's like place these workers right, or your family will starve. So, I mean, it's like it's a real classic like hardcore Euro game where if you play it wrong, you just fundamentally break your economy and then you just lose.
when we were playing dotAge, it felt and I've only played Agricola like once or twice, but I kept thinking back to that, and I might be the only. I have this game here. I don't know if I've unleashed it on everyone, but Keyflower is another game that is very like worker play, tabletop board game, very worker placement. Seasons change, your tiles change based on seasons. Put worker on thing to get item kind of stuff. Um, Seems very kind of like sort of in the same genre, overarching genre umbrella kind of as this game. And one of like the top tags for this game is a board game. And that got me thinking of like, are like is this actually just a board game in a trench coat?
I'm gonna say here's the difference. Agricola, Board Game Geek says playtime is 30 to 150 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you fuck up Agricola, you're only playing it for so many hours.
Uh-huh.
I think this is maybe a good example of where like it's a game concept that is a little too involved and like complicated and has too much stuff in it to be appropriate in a board game format, but if you automate parts of it in computer game form, you can sort of you can do more stuff, I guess. You could, if this was a board game, realistically, like, you know, the tile set would be like, I don't know, 5 by 5 maybe, as opposed to this sprawling map that you have with this game.
Well, like to
But
Colin's point,
it's very board gamey, absolutely.
yeah. Like to Colin's point with Stacklands being like I guess the Stacklands is almost like a digital board game, and it makes me think that like Agricola, like a digital solo play version of Agricola, if you squint your eyes hard enough, could be considered a roguelike or a roguelite city builder colony sim question mark.
I get it. I mean, it introduces randomization via what your various tile sets are. It's not exactly the same game every time. You get the special buildings. I can't remember which. Yeah, you get the buildings are different each time you play, so the upgrade path is slightly different. So it's different tech tree.
Is it like a? I think that this is the key thing here. Is it a branching tech tree, which is like significantly different up here and down here, or is it a straight line like what you have here? Because I think that's really the thing that's missing with this. If you want to have true replayability, let me build the Zerg path up here where I need to get a whole bunch of like little things that are expendable, and the Protoss down here, which are, you know, way more, you know, buff, and they have extra shields and, you know, cost more but are more effective.
Right, and I guess for this it would be like go for the food path where it's like this building, you know, you're gonna get all these building sets. It's like we satisfy the gods through lots of food. Or this one's
the
like
sacrifice, the religious, the science one where you're focused on education.
Right, yeah,
one
you
where
can
it's all
sacrifice
warriors.
Yeah.
You can
sacrifice literal pips for happiness or something. I don't know.
We should probably talk about the story to this game, because we're kind of leading in that direction. Where our story begins with dotAge, where your feeble elder leads a bunch of pips somehow into a verdant valley, and they say, "Aha, yes, this is the spot that I've seen foretold. We should build our new lives here. Let me just remember how to dig a well really quick." And you plop down your command center effectively, and then you go to town. You are looking around the map trying to figure out where all the good fishing spots are, where to go put your workers to start, like literally just putting like your meeples on the resource nodes on the map to get berries per turn and things. And after a few rounds, your village elder will remember the prophecy. And the prophecy here is kind of it's another thing that I sort of totally spaced on from the demo. This is the whole key to the game. This is the point of the game. The prophecy is 8 rounds, at least on normal mode from what I was playing. 8 rounds of surviving wave after wave of cataclysms and dooms and things like that. And so the prophecy is this big scroll that unfurls onto the screen, and you have 4 columns on it. Each one is a different domain. You have a domain of sickness, one of fear, one of temperature, and one of cataclysm. And along the way, as you are progressing through the days and seasons, as you are progressing up to the major challenge for that page of the scroll for your ultimate or your doom event for that level, you are encountering omens, which are little things that increase the difficulty for those domains over time, and eventually you come to one of those doom events, and aha, the temperature doom event has come, and depending on how well you've mitigated it, either you will pass or you will fail. I was astounded that Will was able to play a run of this game, passing every single one of those.
Wow.
On hard. On the hardest.
Boom. Pro gamer.
On hard mode. Because I think that, like...
Well, here's a question. Scott, did you beat one? Did you beat a run?
No.
Okay.
Did you beat a run, Colin?
I didn't, but I'm going to tell you right now that there is not a middle ground once you enter the late game, which is literally, this is my biggest complaint of the game, is that you can't beat the game without basically not failing the latter half of the run. Like if you fail one of them near the end, you just lose. So like there isn't really an in-between point where you fail some of them and not succeed in all of them.
That's not real. I mean, like, I think
near the end, it gets increasingly like you get screwed if you lose.
Well, I know this from my earlier runs and trying to get my first win on the normal mode, but like, yeah, you can like take 1 or 2 hits, and like one you might have a bunch of sickness, for instance. But what you do then is like you start churning out the, like, every turn two or 3 pips, and if you have 2 of the buildings, which you learn later is like you want backups of everything, like you start to convert them back to healthy things. And like, even though like, yeah, they're really sick, or even if a bunch of people die, you already have your grave set up because you have to have the buildings in advance of the problem. That's like one of the biggest, that's all the game is trying to teach you, is like, oh yeah, you have to be prepared for the thing before it happens, and then when the thing happens, you can mitigate that terribleness, and that's it's survivable then.
You're pulling all of your SCVs off of the altars and you're moving them over to the barbecue pits.
Right. I mean, you treat it as like this is emergency. Everyone who is like you're doing anything that's not 100% to mitigate the thing that we just experienced or will experience. You're going to be doing that right now. You're going to be building a fire pit, and even though Watcher is a type of person which would like, help with cooling, and they would help with watching the wind. They literally watch.
They're the lifeguard. They're watching out for everyone.
And so you have some professions, and like, I guess we haven't talked about, all the various like 40 different jobs they might have and specializations and the bourgeoisie and all their specialities. But the point I'm trying to make here is that, yeah, you just, even if someone's specialized as a baker or, if a chef or something, you just say, nope, you're going to dig a hole and throw some wood on it and start generating heat. And that's because, or you're going to start chopping wood because right now the thing is about to happen, and that's going to check it's going to essentially do a test on how much heat you've generated. And the very simple way of imagining all of these domains and these threats is there's 2 things. There's the, for fear, there's the fear and happiness. And every turn, you generate a certain amount of happiness depending on which resources you're utilizing. And fear is generated by the threats and all the bad things going on. And at the end of this kind of countdown, it might say 5 turns till a thing, or 3 turns until a thing. And you have to be like, oh shit. And ideally, you've banked up enough so that you can survive it. But if you haven't, you divert all your resources into it. And the goal is really just to make it so that once the countdown is over, you have sort of, I'm not sure exactly the math on this. I could have figured it out, I'm sure. But like an overwhelming majority of the happiness to fear, for instance. And if you have it exactly even, then what happens is they have this little dice roll, and you click a button, and then it slides left and right really fast, and then it settles, and you either get inflicted with pain or with some kind of a boon. And it's that percent chance is based on the level of majority up till the point where you get to 100% in the positive direction. So that's essentially how the domain mechanic works there, unless I'm missing something.
No, that sounds about right.
Pretty accurate. It's like if you were playing StarCraft, and like every 5 minutes it goes, all right, let's check to see if you have enough minerals banked up, and yes or no. Oh,
I mean, if you're gonna play, if you want a StarCraft, it'd be every 5 minutes you get hit with a wave of enemies of some kind. Like,
I saw him freeze there, and I'm guessing he's scrambling. So this will be
he froze, and he started having a vision of what the next episode will be. Oh, thank good Elder, you've returned from your prophetic vision. What's that? You're ordering us to proactively dig a bunch of graves. That doesn't sound good.
I rolled poorly on my Comcast survival check for 30 seconds.
Unfortunate.
I think for StarCraft would be the have you built enough flying defense check, or have you built enough like cloaking defense check?
Indeed. Now I have a question. At some point, Will, you said, "Hey, once the 5-day countdown shows up, like each round is a day, and it's all like turn based. Like before you assign all of your workers, and how quickly your APM doesn't matter because you assign all your workers, and then you hit the little like, okay, next day." Round, let's go to the next round, and then all the stuff is executed. Anyway, so when Will, you said that when the countdown starts, like the Doom countdown, if you don't already like have the resource, then it's pretty much over, I think is what you said. And that was basically my experience every time, because I'd get a thing that says, hey, in 5 days there's going to be a heat check and you better have enough heat. And I'm like, oh no, I haven't built bonfires or whatever. And then I'd try to divert a bunch of pips to go and do that, and there wouldn't be enough time. So here's my question. Can you like open the scroll and like see what it's going to be before it gets to 5? Because I was only able to ever do that for like the big events.
Yeah, you can only do it for the big event.
Yeah. So
I
you don't know
see.
which domain it's going to be, but and
But if you fail the big event, it's bad.
Oh yeah.
So
Like half your village dies, or half the map is covered in snow.
25 pips die.
Well, there like crucially, there's also like little things that happen along the way that are not like planned events that can also railroad you. Where I thought, oh, it'll be fine for me to starve my village because that's not heat related, so I'm not going to have a problem with that. Oh, that's actually sickness related, as it turns out, and I have 250 sickness points against me the next round.
Oh, mama.
Let's hit the go button and see what happens. And then like my entire colony dies.
I've been there.
But Colin, you were saying about like being able to take a punch and how like later on in the game it's like it becomes like you can't like take even a single punch without losing your whole run. So one note that I had,
Right. You have to, I mean, you have to have preemptively blocked it.
sure, yeah. But how does that differ to something like RimWorld, which I have not spent a whole lot of time in, but I know that in Dwarf Fortress at least, there will be events that happen like later on as you are doing stuff that's like, oh, this is like a like run like colony ending event, and there's basically
Yeah.
nothing I can do about it. But it has this kind of losing is fun element to it.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Is I feel like RimWorld and Dwarf Fortress both have the losing and is fun element of like the final last stand is some sort of like enjoyable, maybe not enjoyable, but it is a memorable experience.
Uh-huh.
I'm not like when I'm playing RimWorld, I'm not trying to win. I eventually just like get tired of the colony and maybe you get to a win state, but there's not like a at the end of this thing, you're done. You've beat the game. I mean, okay, there is for RimWorld, but like you don't. That's not like a real active achievement. Like there's not at 13 hours you're done with this game. You're done with your run. You like the goal for RimWorld or Dwarf Fortress is to like get to some sustainable level and build some like weird thing. Versus this is like losing isn't fun. Losing is you failing.
Yeah. I think that was one of the things that for me, like when I could see, like obviously I make some like mistake, I'm like, oh, okay, like half of my pips are dead, but I still have like I can still continue to the run. And I'm thinking like, well, to what end? Because I know that this run is doomed. I guess I could crank out some more science points here, question mark, but that's not how you get like bank up more meta progression. Like you have to survive more events to get the more meta progression. So it's like, well, do I really want to invest in like, this doomed state here that's maybe going to get me like 2 or 3 more memory points, question mark?
It should kill you faster. If you really do get into that fail state, it should just knock you out immediately.
Or yes, or I think if you know that you're in a doomed state, it should at least have some kind of like more comedic element to it of like, oh, like all of my pips are on fire now, and like this game has like so much charm in its animation and like pixel art that I feel like, and again, like we're comparing a solo dev game against like one of the most like popular games on Steam period that's been out for like 10 plus years. So it's a little different. But one thing that I would love in this game is like, oh, my city is doomed. It's gonna fail. That's fine. But look at how spectacularly things are blowing up.
Yeah,
And
that's a great point.
I think that like the art style and humor in this game are well suited for that. And maybe that's something that will evolve over time into this game. I could totally see it happening. But I feel like that's something that like that doomed state, it doesn't feel losing is, yeah, like you were saying, losing is not fun versus RimWorld or Dwarf Fortress. So it's like, well, my whole, necromancer has moved in and all of my dwarves have turned into vampires and they're eating each other. Let's watch it play out. It just becomes like a popcorn event at that point. And I feel like there's, something you could do similar here, like have a giant saber-toothed tiger roll in and start goring all of your pips one by one. Like that would be funny. Like there's all sorts of room for that here, I think, because of how good the vibe is in this game.
Well, notably, I think that that's I mean you're pointing at something, which is that all of these catastrophes that you're facing are essentially just a dialogue screen that comes up, and then the infliction of like a number of pips that have they're sick, they're stunned, they're on fire, they're frozen, they have they just basically get a condition of affected or on top of them, or I guess some tiles sometimes will turn into snow or ash or something, but it's just like why isn't there this combat element, or like I shouldn't say maybe not combat, but like let the creature, some kind of personification of this very vague domain event, like actually enter the screen. Like what's causing people to be on fire? Like, oh, it's this god. Okay, I get it. It's this god thing that like is spiteful, but like make it not just like set random number of people on fire. Make the fire breathing thing step onto the screen and start marching across and setting shit on fire, and let your dudes like come out with like little spears and like like give me something that isn't just, oh hey, guess what,
Yeah,
a bunch of guys that are bleeding. I don't know
yeah,
how
I
they're
feel
bleeding.
like
They're just bleeding.
the domains themselves are possibly too
Lazy.
nebulous.
Yeah,
Where
they're too lazy.
well, I don't know that I would say lazy. I'd feel like and in particular, I feel like the temperature one has the most interesting element to it. Wherein in the summer months, you want to mitigate, or the hot months, you want to mitigate increasing heat with stuff that generates cold.
Yeah.
And then you want to do the reverse of that in the cold months, which I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. But like the sickness one doesn't really make sense to have that like push-pull reversal mechanism to it. I wish that that there were more domains possibly. Or Will, like you're saying, if they were replaced with like deities or something, like you have to manage this deity of fear or this deity of temperature, which feels like it kind of fits into the theme of like medieval prophecy and stuff. And that the end big bad that I hadn't gotten that far enough to get to the apocalypse event, but that feels like you would have some kind of big boss battle to look forward to.
No.
All of them Megazord together into one
No.
mega bad deity.
No, it's actually it's way more lame than that. It's like well, spoiler alerts here, but
spoilers, folks. You're gonna want to go to this timestamp. Hit us with it.
So the very final, omen of a series of events is like each of the four gets really mad, and in a certain order they start ticking down with their like different levels of doom things. But essentially, once you finish off the final doom thing for the four, it's gone, it's out of there. And so all the pips that are working on generating health, they can be repurposed into generating whatever's next. And so basically, you have 3, then you have 2, then you have 1, and it's just like as soon as you have, because you've been banking it up, because you think ahead, because you've learned how to do the game, as soon as you bank up, like, oh yeah, I've got like over 1,000 of the fear, and right now you're generating 150 per turn, but I'm generating 250 because I have such fucking everything generating that resource. You're just like, okay, I guess I'm gonna hit here, and then like, oh god, every turn is such a drag. You got 6 turns of this, and you're just like, all right, I'm winning, but I have to like tell these pips to do this thing over here. You have to deal with pip management, all the
and then the game is like physically slow. You click the button and it lags for like 5 seconds
Well,
before it starts working, and then it zooms
that's
in
a
on
hardware
pip, and they're
issue.
just like, ah.
That's your computer, I think. That's not.
My computer is very good and brand
Well,
new.
apparently
you
not.
didn't
I don't know.
overclock enough for this game. Yeah.
But the point is, it's not very exciting when you finally win, and
Watch the little pip walk across the screen.
yeah.
Are you surely you're treated to a cutscene of some sort?
With my hard playthrough, I didn't see a single cutscene. It was essentially all the cutscenes they have, I think, are for your first playthrough where they introduce, oh, these are the different domains, and like this is they're demon, they're very exciting, like essentially deities of sorts, and like they have conversation with the elder, or like the elder's remembering things. I didn't see a single one in the hard playthrough, and it was just like oh, okay.
What happens at the very end?
The final thing finishes, and then like you get the final screen that says, and here's your score.
Oh, well, that's too bad. Because the beginning of every run starts with that story sequence that you were referring to, Scott. Interesting, going way back to the whole like losing is not fun. Yeah, it's interesting. The game will inflict like this horrible toll on you where it's like, I got 50 workers and they all need to be doing, not 50, I guess an average amount, let's say in early playthroughs, like 30 or something, 30 workers which all need to be doing exactly the right thing at the right time. Half of them are now out for 10 rounds.
Oh
And
yeah, that is brutal.
so a good way to summarize it is the game is constantly soft locking you. It's like, well, there's no way for me to win. There's not a way to do it. And I agree that some modifications, whether that be through, some more involved animations or through, giving you some more like story screens and kind of like randomized effects and like interpersonal events that happen to spice up the losing, I think would help a lot. Because yeah, as it is, it's a bummer. It's not a whole lot of fun.
I don't like that the game incentivizes you to try to 100% win every event. So like the way it works is you get that little like slider that jiggles back and forth if you don't quite have enough resources to 100% it. But like the way to win is to just never have that happen.
Yeah.
Which seems like a core mechanic. I wish it was more like a slider of how good or bad it is. And you're like, you can never get to 100% or 0%. It's just like, oh, it's the ratio between them. And then it rolls a 20-sided dice and how good or bad that is. It's like
that
based
is
off that.
There is a degree of badness or goodness, but so like for instance, if you had 80% good favorable outcomes, that's still like when you land in the good, there's still a as far as I remember, and I could be misinterpreting this, but like you could have like up to a 7th level of goodness down to essentially neutral. And so you're not
that
guaranteed
based off of how far to the left or right it is in that column, the thing.
Oh no, yeah, exactly. If you have the 100%, then it's going to give you like the up to the maximum amount of goodness as possible from like essentially neutral up to that maximum amount.
It should do better at advertising that.
I agree.
It just gives you a solid green bar, and then something happens at the end. It doesn't show you like, oh, the fact that it happened to be like the thing clicked back and forth and it landed on like pretty near the right side, and that's why your thing wasn't that good.
I think if you have like a 2 negative or like a very low chance of a negative event, like a 10%, and you hit that, I'm pretty sure if it's like and I don't know the bounds, right? You're right. It's not very well advertised, but like I'm pretty sure that if it's like a -7 to 7, that on this particular one, if you only have a 10% chance of getting a negative, I think they limit it to like, oh, you can only have a -1 or -2 scale bad thing. I could be wrong. Again,
I mean, that's my understanding is how it works, because it would feel pretty bad to like almost pass and then get hit with like the maximum worst,
right? Exactly.
The maximum bad outcome.
Oh, in fact, absolutely everyone's on fire now, and
in
I mean,
fact,
I feel
I
like
had
that was
funnily
pretty close to what happened to me. I mean, granted, I lost on the 7th of 8 dooms, and it was like a 50-50 chance, and 25 out of my 50 pips just straight up died.
Oh yeah, I think you probably experienced like, okay, so 50-50 will give you like the 7 is possible, but like at like a 10% probability or something like
Yeah,
that.
and it just
Imagine
got
if it
fucked.
had been 25-75, you would have lost.
They don't tell you the
everyone.
degree though. I never saw that like pop up with like this is the degree of bad you just earned. It's just like, oh, and suddenly like 3 pips are happy for 3 days. Oh,
Is that not based on like the I want to say pip, but we've already reserved that for the population. The little dots above the
Oh,
domain that indicate just
yeah, the
how angry
severity.
that domain is.
Yeah.
Isn't that like the severity level?
is that what it is?
I thought it was either
That the
that
severity
or
level dictates how much badness is generated per turn when it decides to use that domain. So
Ah,
like if it's got 7 pips of badness per, it's like an exponential thing. So it's like, oh, we're going to be generating 150 sickness per turn when you're
But
fighting the
that's not
sickness
related to the
domain.
outcome though, right? Or is it?
I think it is.
sorry to interrupt,
I
but
think
this is
that is
incredibly
the
boring
bound.
to listen to, I think, for our poor
That's
listeners.
fair.
But the point is, we are confused because I had kind of the opposite impression. Like, oh, if I get like way, way, way more of this domain, then that'll be really, really good. And it's like, well, not really. So whatever, regardless of whatever it is in the code, it's clearly unclear to 4 players. We can't figure it out. So it would be nice, especially in a game that it has such a time investment for that information to be clear, because as we've established, you can only take maybe 1 or 2 punches, and it really stinks to lose a run because of a misunderstanding, fundamental misunderstanding with mechanics like this.
Andrew, you know what is not boring
Oh,
is
the
Santa
combat. Oh
Claus.
wait, there is no combat. Oh, Santa Claus. Tell us about your Santa Claus run.
And being able to I have no idea how I unlocked this, but because I never got nearly as far as Will or Colin, who somehow did not unlock this, but being able
You
to
just put more
play
hours into it.
is it
Yeah,
is
you
that the
just
limitation?
got more memories than me. I
Which
really only played
I
one
never
run.
unlocked a Santa.
What?
Interesting.
so
Well-
either I must have hacked the game accidentally.
DLC? Did you buy a DLC?
No, but when I was picking it back up from demo mode, the UI, I don't know what had gone awry between some update, but the UI was sort of all over the place, and it took me some manipulation to get it back in focus. And I don't know if I accidentally inputted some Konami code that unlocked Santa Claus, but yeah, we I think we briefly talked about how there are different elders that you can pick from in this game. Uh, the only other one that I played with, much to my surprise and joy, was Santa Claus, and I thought this was like kind of more of what I was looking for out of this, in that it's more of like a stylized scenario. So you start in the winter as opposed to starting in the spring like you would in a normal one. It's a much shorter run, and the way that the elder dynamic works is very different. Where oh, now instead of having to develop these things to ward off the domains, you have to do that in addition to generating Christmas presents. And I'm like, yes, this like suits like the comedy and like art style of the game so well. Like your pips have little elf hats, which is just perfect. And like I didn't finish a whole run of it, but you have your Santa Elder with notably your demonic Santa Elder who demands toys or will start killing your pips as retribution, like all good Santa
It's
Clauses
basically
do.
a Futurama Santa Claus.
Yes. It's debatable if he's a robot in this instance, but it would work pretty well. And I think that like this is kind of something that I feel like would make the game shine really well, is like more of like these little interesting scenarios, like a Santa scenario, like or a pirate ship scenario, like smaller, more focused kind of bite-sized things. And I was scrolling through like the Dwarf Fortress wiki has like this enormous list of like self-imposed challenges on here. I'm like, any one of these would be like probably super interesting to try um to do here in a similar manner. I have a note in my Google Doc that says like dotAge is in a good way like Dwarf Fortress for babies, or like babies first Dwarf Fortress, where you go in with this expectation of losing is fun, question mark, and being able to like, all right, well, I'm gonna go and like try to build a thing and it's gonna blow up spectacularly, and that's okay. And I love that, like, having this other kind of play style available. I wish there was more of it, and I wish that like you were able to unlock it faster. And I was astounded that, Will, you were saying like you put in a lot more time into this game than I did, and you unlock any other elders?
Yeah, I've within like the first, I think 32 hours where I left at my first like playthrough, I unlocked the shaman, and then I guess during this hard run, I guess you get more experience when you do the hard, but that unlocked the captain. And yeah, the shaman is just universally regarded as worse. According to all the Reddit threads, and my personal experience verifies that it's just like, I know I complained about it in our Discord too. It's just like, yeah, it's just so you if you kill animals, it makes everyone sad. And also you need fur in order to make the thing that makes more pips. So you have to kill animals and make everyone sad in order to expand at all. And it's just like, okay, well, that sure. So now I just have to have more happiness generating things, but it just felt so like antithetical. It's like, oh, your virtue is that you don't kill things, and by the way, you need to kill things. I didn't like that at all. I don't know what the captain does. I didn't play it. I'm not that interested.
Yo ho ho.
Yeah, Scott, as you were describing your Santa playthrough, I was surprised with like how well the mechanics fit that like story. And it's like, oh yeah, you need to generate the presents. The pips are in fact your elves. At certain points, you might have a glut of presents. So you might need to burn them to generate heat. It was very amusing. Yeah, I do like your idea of like a shorter run that's more niche.
I'm pretty frustrated that I didn't unlock any of those things. So I played one run all the way through. I lost in the Cataclysm. It took me 13 hours. And I, at the end of that, did not unlock a different elder. I unlocked a bunch of different buildings. And so when I started my next playthrough, there were different buildings for me to do, but they're not that different. And I didn't have enough fun I didn't have enough fun to play the same thing again. And I was like, you know what? I'm done. That is enough of this game for me. And I feel like that's a bad design. Like, you should be, if you put 13 hours into a single run, you should have unlocked something that's different enough for it to be interesting. And me like, that spit me out. And I'm just like, I don't want to play this more because of how frustrating the end was. And I didn't have enough fun while playing it to invest that amount of time again to try to find something different. And it was like, oh, Santa mode, I would love to have played that, but I didn't get that option. So I'm not good, and I'm not going to play another 13-hour run to get that.
Are you sure you would have liked to play it? It sounds like you really don't like this game.
I'm gonna open it up real quick and see if I actually unlocked that. I just didn't know. That's possible.
Let's take a look.
I think the problem is that I liked a lot of parts of the game, and I feel like it just didn't come together for me.
I see.
It was a lot of broken promises.
Is this an early access game?
It is not early access. This game released 1.0 in last October, but has been being worked on by the dev before release, I think for like 9 years or something.
Holy mackerel.
And so, like, I can understand that
you survived 9 winters. You telling me? Wow, I couldn't even get through one winter.
So many of those apocalypse pages. Yeah, I think like I feel like I can see where the effort has gone in, because there's a lot of like, we've been kind of dunking on this game a lot, but I think there's a lot of good things about like the UI and like just the overall, like the idea of like a turn-based like colony sim is like, I've never played that before, and I think like it's done pretty well here. I think like it opens up like that kind of genre in a way that like 20 years from now, that like the only way that I'm able to play StarCraft is in this kind of turn-based mode. Like, this would be like a really great way to do it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, I I had very high hopes for this game, and probably if I had lower expectations, I probably would have given this a higher score. But part of
I,
it is disappointment.
any game I would recommend, I can see why you would think it's going to be the greatest game of all time. So
I
I
mean,
understand the
it
confusion
checks a
there.
lot of boxes,
True.
and then I grew disillusioned and frustrated, and like it's like anything where if you go into a movie and you're like unexpectedly delighted, even if it's only mediocre,
Hmm.
you think it's a fond experience, like, wow, that was way better than I thought it was going to be. And then if you go into something, you're like, wow, that's way worse than I thought it would be. Like, even if it's the same final score, the one that was better than you thought is going to be a better memory.
Yeah.
It's funny to me that you didn't do what I did, which is like, and I probably do this with most games, is if I see that there was some early inefficiency in like what is clearly like a long-term game, I just restart right away. I'm like, oh, I don't actually need to like dump 3 times as many resources as I have in education or knowledge into that. I'll be like, okay, well, actually, because you get all these tech things that suddenly you can't build, and it's just like because you don't have enough workers. It's like, oh, I'll just do a reset right there, and that's how I treated this game until I got to like a point where I think when I finished my first game on normal, I had an unlock available because I restarted several times to be like, the build order really matters early on, and
Mhm.
I don't know. I had this is where the fun for me was like, how do you master that? Like, what is the right build order? How do you protect against domains? And just doing this reset until you have the right. Okay, this strategy. I put 2 hours in the last one, and then 1 hour in the one before that. This strategy here is gonna do it, and then you get to the end, and you're like, that's right.
It
And
feels
Well,
a
how
little
did you know
it
it
safe.
feels
wasn't
good.
going to do it if you hadn't gotten? I expected the game to boot me out and be like, okay, well, you didn't do it right, therefore you died.
Mhm.
But that didn't. That just kept not happening. I kept getting by.
Well,
Oh, I just quit.
importantly,
I quit before death every single time because I'm like, oh, I got it. I don't need to watch this play out.
Yeah.
I'm a quitter. That's deep down. I guess that's what I am. That's this isn't working out. Wave that
I,
white flag. Get out of there.
true. I don't know. There might be some audio coming through on my end of some Elden Ring being played, some heated Elden Ring, which is a similar vibe of potential frustration,
Losing is fun in Elden Ring.
I
losing.
didn't like Elden Ring either.
Absolutely. But real quick, I did want to point out one thing. Interestingly, crucially, importantly, when you die in this game, the game is the game, the way that the story is sort of couched and set up is that instead of that village like being destroyed, canonically like dying, and like you get to try again, it's the village elder goes, oh wait, no, I've misremembered. That's not how the story goes. That's not what
Yeah.
happened. Half of your pips didn't die of starvation and then go on a killing spree, and the last remaining amount, died in a horrible windmill accident. What actually happened was this. Let's start from the story over from the beginning, and then it like rewinds, which I thought was kind of cutesy and fun. It needs more of that in the losing. I feel like that sort of vibe. Now, very quickly, I feel like some people may hear what we're saying, our complaints, and say, "Well, why don't you play the game on an easier mode?" And to the game's credit, when you go to start it up on normal, it pops up and says, "Beware." Well, I'm paraphrasing. It's like dotAge is a long and brutal game. Like, are you sure you want to play it on normal? And you got to say yes. But here's the trouble. When you go to select like the easiest setting, the little description really kind of puts you off, at least for me, puts you off playing the easiest setting. It's like the description is like events like have very minor effect. It's like, well then if there's no impact to the gameplay,
Mhm.
to these events, which are kind of the key feature, like the cornerstone of the game, why would I bother playing, I don't know, the easiest mode? I feel like the difficulty scaling is a little is not great. I'm not totally sure what the solution is, but did anyone try to play the game on an easier setting?
I did for one of my runs. I tried playing it on like super easy and the shortest possible mode because I was like, okay, like what's the full breadth of this? Is like is easy fast and particularly like with this game coming hot off the heels of Slice and Dice, I feel like I'm okay with being bludgeoned over the head with difficulty, so long as there's like a lesson to be learned, or I'm empowered with a new thing of like, okay, I got it. Now this next time I can do this other thing differently. But here it was like, okay, I've spent so much time on this like I was in the middle of my second village or something, and I was like, okay, yeah, I think I'm starting to get it. I think I've like grokked the systems, but I'm gonna quit anyway to just go into easy mode and see what happens. And I kind of didn't really notice that much of a difference, to be honest.
Oh,
And I
interesting.
don't
Okay.
and I don't know if that's just because I don't really like maybe I just didn't really understand what I was doing, but I think yeah, like once it was one of those things where it's like, okay, yeah, I get like how to beat the individual domains. You restart and then it's like, okay, well now I'm back at square one. I have this, even if it is just 100 turns, it's still like that still feels that like 100 turns feels like what the default turn or like game length should be. And
Yeah.
then like you like maybe there's like a turbo mode like just below that where I have some of my notes in this Google Doc are like being able to start at like a different season or like start midway through a campaign with just stuff randomly thrown out at you, and you're just like you're given like something that's already pre-built, and then that way you're like, okay, now I can experiment with how the end game works without having to grind for 14 hours to get there.
Yeah. I
Remind
think you're
me.
right
I
with the
disagree completely. I think that's a foolish idea, and I think that I would never
Coming
want
from
that. And
coming
here's
from
why.
Civ Boy over here.
That is exactly Civ. When I think about Civ, if you were to throw me into a random Civ game, and Civ, I'm going to go ahead and say, even though this is a roguelite podcast, we can't talk about non-roguelite games.
Yeah, turn off now, everybody.
Yeah, a Civ is a 10 out of 10 game. Civ is one of the Civ 5 in particular. I must
Civ
make
4
that.
best Civ.
Colin is a fool, but 5 the best ever.
Doomstock.
But like if you were to throw me into a random Civ 5 game like midway through, I'm not having a good time. I want to see it grow from its beginning to the end, and there's so much more joy in like the. And then I like got my close ally, or what I wanted to believe was my close ally to fight this guy here, and then I fucking fucked him when he was doing it, and you're
Well,
just like, yeah,
I,
like that's
I see what you're saying, but Civ is like it's literal apples and oranges because it's so fully featured and so deep in every possible regard. And again, it has like maybe more budget behind it than dotAge. We don't know for
Perhaps.
sure. But if dotAge had the budget of a Sid Meier game, like that would be great. And
the thing is that like
no.
they don't they couldn't do the AI. There's no combat because to have an AI that makes decisions and like the amount of work that goes into that is like that's where it gets the breadth of like of work is done. I think is that you have 16 different civs. They have different specialties. They have different units to do. Like no, like there's no way a single solo dev is going to make. That's why they're domains. They're 4 generic things you're fighting against instead of like this vast array of multifaceted civilizations that change at every era. No, there's no way.
All right, I've got it. So the god of sickness is Athens. The god of fear is Rome. Temperature is Russia, and then cataclysm is Gandhi. Let's say.
Well,
Okay.
wouldn't it just be like Slanesh and Corn and what are the other ones, Andrew?
Whoa, 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 whoa! Hey, you're making me look bad here. I'm supposed to be the Warhammer guy. Yeah, you got.
Well, I mean,
got,
I can't even
got
remember
that.
more than the two of them.
That clockwork one that's trying to be another chaos
rough.
god.
Wow, look at this guy, fucking
And
poser.
and the goopy one, Nolan Oil. That's not his name.
Dr. Goopenstein.
Anyway, yeah, that would be. I do like this idea of the incarnation of these different domains. But I guess that's maybe not the vision that our solo dev.
What kind of game is it if I can't even sacrifice blood for the blood god?
That's true. Or
And that's
get them
where
skulls for the skull throne. It's true.
and
It's
that's
true.
and that's where I feel like more of these kind of thematic different elders that are quicker to unlock. And again, like, I'm just like dumping work on the devs plate and be like, just make more assets, please, and just make more game. It's super. Just hit the import game button. armchair dev over here.
Nurgle,
I
by
mean,
the way,
but
there
the
we are.
thing is-
Nurgle's the fourth one. Sorry, I just real quick had to get that out there. I know all
One
four
next
God of Plague.
mascots.
But here's the thing. Yes, it is harder for a solo dev to do stuff, but this is me spending my time and money for a thing. It's irrelevant to me how many people worked on it. Like if I'm recommending, hey, you should spend 15 hours or 30 hours doing this thing, how many people worked on it on the back end is irrelevant.
Not
because
Scott. See, Scott's insane. So he thinks that like, oh, it's a solo dev, therefore we have to throw them 1,000 bones.
We do. We must
1,000
because
we
they
can
are
admire
special.
we can admire the effort, but if at the end of it, it's like, well, I'm still the one who's playing it. So if I didn't have fun because they didn't have enough resources to do the game as good as it could have been,
Well, I mean,
I still didn't have as good of a time.
I feel like it's a little mean-spirited to look at your niece's macaroni collage and be like, "What a piece of crap! I don't care how many people worked on it."
But it's not
Like,
my niece; it's someone else's niece, and I'm not putting it on my wall.
And you
interesting
paid
point.
$14 for it.
I paid $14 for your niece's shitty macaroni art.
Now, to be
real
clear-
quick,
To be fair, that's I'm maybe coming off a little harsh. This game is
No,
not
you're
we
right
know.
on.
bad
You are
macaroni
100% on the mark here.
No. So I think like for me, I think the end point here is that yes, this is a solo dev game. I think like we'll get to our rankings here in a minute, but I think because the game has only just come out in October, I feel like this game like would have probably benefited from an early access period, even though it's like it's pretty fully featured. Like you can play through a whole end of the game, and like there's lots of stuff in it. There's lots of things to do, but I feel like there's a lot of element of like community feedback that like this game's getting like a lot of really good press. People like it, which is great. And I imagine that over the years, this game will get content updates and things like that that'll help flesh it out some more. So it might be that, like a little less than a year out, it might just need some more time in the oven to get that stuff that we're all complaining about.
In which case, it'll be a better game.
perhaps. Now, you mentioned that it's getting good press. Yeah, I'm looking at the Steam page here real quick.
How's it doing?
These quotes are
Ooh, what do you got?
wow. dotAge is a masterpiece, it says here.
What?
Compelling from its first moments, each run teaches you something new. Well, not for us, I guess. And then there's another one that says, I've played over 150 games in 2023, and this right here, dotAge, that's my game of the year.
That's too many games.
That's that's a lot of games. That's true. So clearly it is connecting with certain people, and I can, I mean, I see where people are coming from. Like I definitely had a lot of fun, and it certainly generated a lot of happiness for me personally. This pip right here, but it could be even better. Apparently, potentially, hopefully. I guess we'll see.
Now I'm looking. Okay, so I want to mitigate what you just said with the number of hours I see played by these recommended thumbs, which are oh yeah, we have 18 hours, we've got 22 hours, we've got 33 hours. Yeah, by all means, and this goes back to my original point, play it through to the end once, call it good. Then you can give it a thumbs up. Don't do anything more than that.
In which case, I mean, that's pretty good value, entertainment value for $20 or $17.59.
Get it on sale. Get it at half off.
Man,
Get it $10, and it's worth it.
If you want to be thrifty, in this day of indie games, I rarely pay more than like $10 for a game.
Right, exactly. Oh my god,
it's a rough market.
$18. You gotta give me at least, I think at this point, like 50, 60 hours. I feel like
in this economy with these interest rates.
Indeed.
Here I am, having played Slay the Spire for like fucking 1,000 hours. So.
Yeah, you owe them money at this point.
At this point, yeah. Can I give you more money? Is there a donates to Metacritic?
It's called Slay the Spire 2, and get ready for it. There's a donation button.
Oh my!
Well, so I think we have to jump into rankings.
Let's get the ratings done. Yeah.
Otherwise, that dam is gonna break. Let's see. Ratings. Andrew, let's you kick us off with ratings this time.
Okay. Here we go. So, I played this game for approximately hours, maybe somewhere between 8 and 10 hours. I left it running for a little bit AFK. Some pros. We got a fun concept, fun graphics. The animations are very entertaining. In fact, at one point I hit this weird there's options to like speed up the animations, which of course I suggest doing.
Right
but
away.
I didn't want them to be completely gone. I liked seeing them run around and do their stuff, and I enjoyed that visual feedback. They're like, hey, you know, the village is doing something. At one point I hit this weird glitch where the animations at the end of the day like weren't happening, where like everyone zip, like fast motion runs to their house or whatever. I'm like, whoa, there's a major problem. And I immediately noticed, and I immediately had to address the issue. So, I mean, that speaks to, at least for me personally, the effectiveness of the aesthetic and the presentation and everything. I think is really effective. The interface wise, I don't know if this is common for city builders because I ain't hardly played any of them. But the whole like single click interface was nice, was interesting. I enjoyed, and by that I mean unlike StarCraft, like an RTS type experience where, okay, you select your workers and then you order them to move to a particular place. Like all you're doing is just clicking on the individual buildings, like to give those orders. And like automatically a pip will go forth and do that thing. And I thought that the game was able to do that in a pretty elegant and straightforward way, which I was impressed by, and helped streamline the experience. Like if it had more of a StarCraft type left click, right click, select your things, order your things, the game will be even slower, and that would be unfortunate. We've discussed a lot of issues with this game. One of the issues that I had was when I first heard about it, and I have a bad track record, a bad habit of doing this with games and films and all sorts of media, where I hear the concept and my brain automatically sort of auto generates like what I think that might be. And when I heard that, oh, there's this crotchety prophet of a village elder, and you have to manage the city, I immediately thought like, oh, cool. So I'm going to be like ordering around. I'm going to be controlling the elder, and he's going to be like buffing people by going and, making the work day go a little faster because he's taking people's mind off of things with some long rambling story that doesn't go anywhere, that involves, 5 bees to a quarter and, wearing an onion on your belt or something. Unfortunately, the whole village elder thing is really just kind of an aesthetic and also a reason, an explanation for the mechanics and an explanation for the story, which I think is fun. But I would have really hoped to have had there be like some kind of meaningful mechanical and controllable aspect to the village elder. Exactly what that is, I'm not totally sure, but I was a little bit bummed that I didn't have a little more say in what kind of antics the village elder was getting up to. All this being said, I had a number of playthroughs that were pretty brutal and ultimately ended in tragedy every time. But I really, enjoyed my experience. I was having a lot of fun pretty much, all 10-ish hours that I was playing. And this game is going to come in pretty reasonably high, actually, surprisingly much higher than Against the Storm. And one last detail before I get to my actual rating I wanted to mention was one of my favorite things that I look for in a good roguelike experience is the emergent narrative that can sometimes happen, that story, which can sometimes save the fun of a failed run. It's like, well, at least I died in a spectacular and fun way. And that did happen here, and it has the potential to happen throughout your runs because of these different effects and that can be applied to the pips, and these different like random events that can happen. In that my economy was humming along, but it was very dependent on fishing. And wouldn't you know it, a random event came up. It was called Bad Joke. And someone told a bad joke to my fisherman, my only trained fisherman in the village. And because of this horrible joke, the fisherman wouldn't work for 10 days. And my village starved to death on account of somebody having a crappy sense of humor.
What's the deal with
I can relate to? What is the deal? Anyway, all that being said, I think it's probably worth playing this game. It's pretty fun. Giving it a 5.64, coming in at number 11 on my list. So almost cracking the top 10. Pretty good, pretty good. I'm gonna turn it over to Will.
No, I'll go next.
Oh, okay. I'm turning it over to Colin.
Also, I want to put a caveat that Andrew, your scores baffled me. Your average rating is so much lower than the rest of you. Then you're like, I like this game a lot. 5.6. Like, oh, okay.
That's okay, because our end of season
Anyway,
Mega Bowl is based on the aggregate average ranked value. So it doesn't really matter what we rank it, but
very quickly to address that though, mine is all about the stack rank. Don't listen to that number. It's number 11. Ooh, baby. Number 11, what a deal. I thought you were referring to my score in the game because crucially, this game does have leaderboards. You can compare yourself to your friends, which who doesn't do that already?
11 out of what though?
How many have I reviewed? Great question.
Right. I mean, like 11 means nothing.
28?
1,000.
You know, Will, you
according
are.
To the Google sheet.
I'm sorry to be discussing this on air, but you. That's the exact question I asked myself when I first tuned into this podcast. Why are you doing a stack ranking? And then I joined the thing, and then suddenly I've adopted this mindset of ranking games, and then suddenly it gets switched up on me. What is it out of? 28. In my case. It's out of
28 for you.
28 games. There we go. So maybe next season, Andrew's ranking system will get a full renovation. Anyway, sorry, Colin. Yes, what'd you think of this game? Pretty probably a 9 out of 10, eh?
6 out of 10. Which
what?
Is pretty.
I thought I saw your score. Did you change it?
No.
No. Okay. Never. I remember Scott's. That's what it was.
I think this game has potential in the future. I really like the idea of a worker placement board game pip turn-based RimWorld type game. But it was very long and very slow, and I feel like there's a lot of things on that compounded with each other when I was already starting to grow frustrated near the end of the game. I'm pretty sure it's not my computer's fault, but the game was running slowly. Even like, okay, this little pip has to run across the map, and then he's like, look, I found 3 wood. And you're like, I'm making like 40 wood a turn right now. I do not care about this event. And you wasted 15 seconds of my time. Like, I'm just
animation speed, you never turn that up.
I did turn that up.
There is
apparently there was
more
lag.
Animation speeds to turn up that I didn't see.
I'll tell you what, like at the end when the whole like moving across to like do something at maximum, it takes like 3 seconds with even if they have to move across the entire map with
maybe I didn't find all of the settings to turn up, but yeah, I mean, I'm probably salty because I lost.
So give it a plus 0.5 then. I mean,
I'm not going to. I would have given it a plus 0.5 if I had felt any incentive to play after I lost, but. I think my biggest criticism of the game is that after I spent a bunch of time playing, which was like a decent time, there was nothing else to draw me back. I didn't unlock a different elder. I unlocked buildings that, as Will have said, were basically the same-ish. Like the gameplay didn't feel different. I played like a couple hours of a new game, and it was like, no, this is the same. And I wanted it to be more than it was. And maybe it will be someday, but if you're playing it on August 13th, 2024, I don't think it's there yet.
For you, that's equivalent to Stacklands, Doom RL, Into the Gungeon, Hand of Fate.
Yeah, so for me it's 33 out of 53.
Right, 33, yeah.
Oh boy.
Scott, who takes it next here?
I'll let you, Will, go, and then we'll end on a positive note.
That really makes me want to have the reverse, but all right, because I've seen your score. I know how you are, Scott. Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 7. 7 out of 10. Right down to the brass tacks here. Is that play that, as I said, play that one playthrough, or I should say, go through it. Experience the pain of like, oh, that's how this works. Restart several times, realize the right build order, get through to a win, and then never play the game ever again. and that'll take you probably like 20 hours. That's why I say with the price tag you have on it, I mean, you expect at this point in the with games out there, you want to have more than 1 hour per dollar, or roughly, you want to have a bit more than that for a truly epic great game. I had a great time in the beginning. I remember specifically we were playing other games for the podcast, and I downloaded this game and I was like, oh well, let's just quickly I'll just spin this up, and I kept coming back to it. I'm like, I really want to see like what was the right build order there, and I just kept being compelled to open this up, and that's why I inflicted on all of you guys is that I felt the compulsion that apparently none of you felt, and I feel bad now that you've avoided really one of these core like feelings of engagement with video games and with fun in general. So
I did feel the compulsion. I just
let it be known I was compelled.
there was compelling. Okay,
I was compelled, but I was also frustrated while I was like, "Argh."
That frustration, that's what drives you, right? You failing, you're hitting the wrong note when you're playing an instrument. You practice, you do it again, and then you get it right, and you fucking...
Yeah, but there, I mean, and that is the core of roguelikes is the you fail and then one more run. But there was not that
fail, or like just call it quits. Don't try and see it through. That's, I think, one of the key things that has come out of the discussion is that like don't watch the boring, slow, sad death. Just be like, oh,
I mean, I almost made it. If I made like one stupid mistake in round 7 of 8, I think I would have won the normal the first time I played it.
Well, in any case,
And
7. What is that?
bad.
7. The equivalent to a 7 here is Cult of the Lamb, Wildermyth, Lone Star. Yeah, those are all 7s, and slightly better is Loop Hero, Hand of Fate, Fights in Tight Spaces, and worse is Stacklands, Streets of Rogue, and Griftlands. So I think, yeah, that's a really great. That's a 7. That is a solid 7 right there.
Scott, go.
Yeah, I'll bring us home. Yeah, I think this game I like pretty well. I don't know that this is
a 7 and an 8. Just out of curiosity.
What?
I'm just remarking on how all of your scores end up between 7 and 8.
I mean, yeah,
preemptively
for
knowing
someone,
what you already have in there.
For someone who blasts the Likert scale of like, anything that's below an 8 is basically garbage. I happen to have my rankings built out that way.
Wait, is it Likert or Likert?
I thought it was Likert.
I have never said Likert as in, drinking some scotch and feeling liquored. Is it Likert or, oh my God?
I thought it was like
my entire life.
So...
I don't know if this is a review of...
I've referred... No, this is... Okay, for those who are unaware, in the survey business, of which both Scott and I have been involved, there's a scale called the Likert scale, and it's got like a 1 to 7 and of intensity. According to
Wikipedia,
yeah, the IPA, which then I have to look up how IPA works again every time.
Sorry for this.
It says LIK in all caps and then upside down ERT.
I don't know.
So I think I'm right.
No, I'm pretty sure that's.
This is what people are tuning in to the final rankings for, is debates on.
Dude, if it's liquored, I'm gonna feel so fucking stupid. I really. It would hurt me a lot to know that it was.
Oh yeah, no, never mind. Scott is right.
Yes. Vindicated. That means my ranking of this game is the true.
Ever go up against Scott? He is our leader.
How is that possible? Likert, Likert.
Well, it's a person, so no one knows how
name, right?
Names work.
It's like the
Pip's name.
It's like the Resident Evil monster that can't see and that has a big tongue that lashes out everything. All right, so
his first name is Rensis, so he's already making
that can't
up
be
2
real.
names.
Oh Lord!
But anyway,
so dotAge. Well, welcome to the Likert Scale podcast. dotAge. I think the things that I don't like about this game, I felt like I was trying to go to the online wiki to find stuff. And the wiki was a little sparse against solo dev effort, but I think like the in-game wiki was pretty good, but didn't have everything that I was trying to look for. So I was a little lost there. It feels like, yeah, I think we talked about the pace of unlocks for different game modes should be faster and have more variety. I think like like the core gameplay experience is fine, but I feel like this game would really shine with some more of that kind of wacky variety like you get with the Santa Elder. Um, the gameplay loop I think should definitely be shorter. I think when I got to the part where it's like, oh, this is the prophecy, and you get to the second page and you complete the second page, and it's like, oh, this is the all of the prophecies going out to the doomsday, and it goes to page 8. I just felt like the wind go way out of my sails, and I was like I was having fun up to that point, and then I was like, well, I don't know, am I gonna still have fun like 8 more prophecies from now? I don't know. And it just kind of felt like maybe I might be having fun from then, but when you're get your colony collapse disorder going, at that point you're like, well, now I know that it goes to 8 for the normal one. Do I really want to sink that much time into one run of this? I'm not totally sure. Um, but the things that I think this game has going for it, I think are really solid. I think this game's core gameplay loop is very solid. I think it has a very good foundation and base to it. Yeah, I think you could totally add more stuff to this. DLC, mod packs, workshop mods, those kinds of things. I think this would be a great playground for that. The graphics, I think, are amazing. I think this is like the animation, the graphical palette, just how everything kind of comes together feels very it feels like this could be released on Nintendo Switch and no one would bat an eye. Like, oh yeah, this is totally a Nintendo game. And I think the UI is pretty busy but functional. I was kind of surprised at how well, like, oh yeah, I can just go over here and do this thing. And you wouldn't think that like playing a colony sim game on the Steam Deck would be very easy, but it works really well here. So I think this game would be well suited for like Switch, for console games with the joypad interface. Turn-based stuff I think is done really well, kind of the core gameplay systems. Yeah, plays great on the Steam Deck. Somehow I didn't have any slowdown on the Steam Deck. So don't know what was going on there. And that is going to come out of the wash at a 7.6 on my Likert scale of rankings. Just behind Hand of Fate 2 and just ahead or tying with The Last Spell, another game that I think is good, but I think maybe would be twice as good if it was half as long. Which
Who
I
would have
think
guessed?
Yeah, it's a 7. It's in the 7 to 8 range. Sure. Why not? We'll just lump it in with all the other games that have in the 7 to 8 range. Um, and yeah, I think that seems like an appropriate spot for now. Similar games to this, we've talked a lot about Dwarf Fortress, RimWorld, Against the Storm a little bit, and I just mentioned The Last Spell. Definitely check some of those games out. Dwarf Fortress is a to-do for us for sure. Some games that have come out recently that I think have that kind of similar whimsiness to them that you get here, which again is like a new burgeoning realm of roguedom and city builders. There's The Wandering Village, which is like you're building. It's like a city management rogue game on the back of a giant leviathan or like a giant monster,
Yeah.
which it looks super cool. I'm like, that's an interesting aesthetic. I think I've mentioned in the past for similar games of Roots of Yggdrasil, which is another kind of very, very nice cartoony looking graphics city builder game that is has a very unique aesthetic to it. One that I saw just today that I was like, oh, I should do more research on this, but I'll mention it anyway. Cardboard Town, question mark. Seems like it might fit in here. And then I have some coming soons that haven't come out yet, but stay tuned for these. I played all the demos for these recently, and I thought these were interesting. There's Technotopia, which is like a city builder asterisk. And you're not really building a city. Well, you are building a city, but it's like a 3D space Luck Be a Landlord adjacency city builder, which is an interesting concept. You have Starground, which is a cutesy Nintendoized version of a city builder that like it's like what if Factorio but on the SNES, which has potential. I see Colin raising his eyebrows. And then you have Neon Garten, which is like a it's like a Civ light in that you're building out a city and you're building out connections, placing buildings and districts around and stuff, but much quicker. And it has that kind of like 1920s metropolis movie vibe to it, which is super cool. So give those a check out at your leisure, listener. Yeah, that's going to wind down our dotAge show. We've all dotaged another 20 years doing this episode. You can send us your stories that don't go anywhere about how you were getting a new heel for your shoe down in Morganville, which is what they called Shelbyville back in those times, to
No one's gonna
GrogPodZone.
get that. No one's gonna get.
To grogpodzone@gmail.com if you still remember what email is, or if you're one of those hip new kids that's like, oh yeah, I'm totally with it. I'm definitely under the age of 30. And I know what Mastodon is. You can use grogpod at gamedev.place to send us pictures of cats there. And grogpod.zone is where it's the one-stop shop for everything. All right, all that is out of the way. We've suffered long enough. We finally made it to 50 episodes of this podcast somehow. So and I will say most podcasts don't make it past like 2 or 3 or even like 10. So the fact that we've gotten to 50 episodes is a monumentous occasion, and it could not have done it without the present company involved.
But
So
mostly we couldn't have done it without you because you do all of the work for the podcast.
True, it's true.
Yeah, if it's up to me, this wouldn't be a podcast at all. So I mean, that's
but for our
Video game
big
book club that's also on the internet.
Exactly. The book club you can listen to on your commute. And for our big 50th episode spectacular, Colin has pulled out of or has seen the prophecy of what lies ahead.
Oh, you know it. It's the one. It's the only. We refer to it every episode. I don't actually know if we referred to it during this one.
Well, we are
so we
right
gotta
now.
gotta get it
We
in
saved
now.
it for this
That's right, we're
moment.
playing
Baby,
Alpha
it's
Man.
Slay the Spire.
Oh!
Slay the Spire.
Is that the reference that we've had for this episode?
Yeah.
I think so. I don't think we referenced it a single time.
There was
Maybe
no-
the
yeah.
first in the whole podcast. We gotta
I'm
get it in
sorry
there.
to be a party pooper, but I'm pretty sure Scott mentioned it. But it could be it could be misremembering.
I
It's
would
just-
remember any mention of Slay the Spire, and there was none.
Listeners, write in. Tell us yes or no. Slay the Spire, yay or nay. Well, I'm gonna get some dirty looks. Can't wait to play that for the first time.
No, that is part of the
Wait, you
reason why I
haven't?
felt
Or you-
okay.
I have not played Slay the
Holy
Spire.
shit! Are you? I wish I was you right now. Oh, to only be in that position of never having played
Mhm,
Slay the
mhm, mhm.
Spire.
Andrew,
I will not squander it.
you are in for a treat of not understanding what any of the cards do and then getting bludgeoned over the head by a cackling wienery thief who steals all of your money. You being like, okay, I can see why this game is so popular.
No. You're painting it in the. Why are you trying to poison the well?
I mean, it
here?
is
This is a well
a
of-
genre. It is
of
a genre
well-being.
defining game.
And
It
we
is.
will be covering it
Finger.
here on the Grog Pod.
Hey, is Downfall included?
On a grog pod.
So Slay the Spire is going up. Downfall coming down as the enemies is an expansion, a mod. Are we allowed to do both? Because I tell you what, I've done. A hefty amount of both, but I could go for some variety.
Maybe we should just have like the downfall corner where you and I talk about it for like 5 minutes because I don't think it makes sense to try and get Andrew and Scott to play it for this. Like the base game has enough on its own.
Yeah, I think there's. I mean, if Will's able to put almost 1,000 hours into the base game, yeah, I think like we will definitely mention the downfall mode inadvertently. I don't know if it will warrant a separate ranking on the Google Sheet per se, but yeah, we'll get there when we get there. But yeah,
Will, you haven't even played 1,000 hours. Of Slay the Spire.
982 with 40. I mean, obviously 46 out of 46 achievements.
By the end
but,
of
like,
next episode.
Yeah, no, we'll be over the 1,000.
I mean, most of that time is it idling on the other half of the monitor while you're watching Star Trek. So.
No, I play Slay the Spire while the reruns of Star Trek or Seinfeld, essentially those two things, are playing. It's really the best way to live.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, yeah, that'll be our big 5-0 is tackling that Spire that we've talked so much about. And yeah, it's gonna do it for our dotAge episode. And playing us out this time will be some peaceful techno music. Wait, no, that's not how it happened. That's not how it happened at all. it was actually peaceful medieval music that was playing us out from this episode.